60 Minutes with Angela starts right now.
Nigeria's federal government bans the production and importation of codeine cough syrup to stop what is an impending addiction epidemic. Apparently, an estimated 3 million bottles of the codeine cough syrup are consumed in only 2 states of Nigeria's northern region. The syrup is either taken straight or mixed in a soft drink. As the world faces an opioid crisis and the United States experiencing a drop in life expectancy due to the opioid crisis, what exactly are opioids? Can we do without them? Well, hello and welcome to the program. I'm Angela Ajitumobi. Raphael Ogbolu is a consultant psychiatrist in Nigeria's Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Since August 2010, he specializes in treating drug abuse, sleep problems, and comorbid HIV drug abuse. He's also the coordinator of Suicide Research and Prevention Initiative and Staff Emotional Care Services. He joins me on the program today. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ogbolu, for coming back on 60 Minutes with me. We've had a discussion before,
Yes, we have.
about suicide and stuff. I was reading an article of yours recently where you tried to actually make that connection between the high suicide rates we're seeing today and the abuse of what are essentially prescription drugs. So I suppose my first question is, was federal government irrational in banning these drugs? Are we ignoring the essential work that drugs like this also do in alleviating pain?
It's an initial response. I wouldn't say it's the wrong approach for now. Because listening to the director of NAFDAC,
Yes.
explaining that it was an attempt to first stem the tide, okay, at least initially.
Yes.
Because with drug abuse, there are 2 things, the supply and demand. Okay, so what they've done is try to stem the supply. Okay, I expect it shouldn't be the long-term plan.
Okay.
Because, like you said, these drugs do have their value in medical treatment.
Yes.
But initially, because of the issues we have with the availability of the drugs without prescription. So probably addressing the supply, this initial period could go, an initial way is trying to stem the tide.
Yes.
But it can be a long-term thing, because what happens is, once you ban the drug outright,
Yes.
the black market thrives.
Yes.
What happens is, and people make more money.
Yes.
You see, so sometimes those who deal in these drugs would like you to ban
They
them.
like it.
Exactly, because it's going to, the prices will more than double. And it now becomes a lucrative black market trade. And we wouldn't want that with prescription drugs.
Okay, let's go back in history. In 1803, a German scientist, Friedrich Sertona, first isolated morphine from opium. So that tells me that morphine has its uses. It belongs to the family of the opioids. So
Yes.
what exactly are opioids?
Well, opioids are narcotic drugs, okay, or chemicals. And what they do is they act on naturally occurring receptors in our body, which we call the opioid receptors. And they bring about relief of pain, and they're also linked to what we call the reward center in the brain, so which makes you feel good, gives you pleasure.
Yes.
Now, we already do have endogenous opioids in our body.
Naturally.
Yes, naturally. Endorphins, they are called. For instance, I mean, most people will have, maybe you've slammed your door against your finger.
Yes.
What happens is you have this pain. And most people don't understand, may not appreciate that after that pain, there's an initial soothing feeling. Some call it sweet pain.
Yes.
Okay? What's happening there is the body mobilizes the endogenous opioids, okay,
To go there.
Yeah, to relieve the pain. Now, one of their other effects is to give you this woozy feeling, but it's very short-lived. But that's to tell you that already this is something that the body uses
Naturally
in dealing
has.
with. Exactly.
Okay.
So people now take it from the outside to stimulate those same receptors in the body, okay, that makes them keep wanting to go back to it, just to experience that pleasurable feeling.
So that tells me, just thinking logically, that it can't be a good thing if something is naturally in you and then you're introducing an artificial one to enhance what occurs naturally. That can only be a recipe for disaster.
Yes, because what happens is, over time, you get used to experiencing the effects that it has on the reward system which we have in the brain.
The euphoria.
Yes. And then the reward system will want to keep feeling good. So, and that's where the whole addiction comes.
Right.
Over time, the receptors get used to binding with these drugs you take.
Yes.
Because the receptors are already occurring naturally in the body, you take them, they bind.
Yes.
The natural endorphins are short-lasting. They just do what they're supposed to do
and they disappear.
But these ones you take, some of them are long-acting, okay, like the morphines and co. And what happens is when the receptor gets so used to it, when you don't take the drugs, the receptor begins to complain. Let me use that word. And so it's that complaint that makes people feel uncomfortable.
I want to take more.
I want to take more to relieve the complaint from the receptor. And that's basically what happens in addiction. So when you don't take it, the receptors begin to fire, begin to complain. You take it, you feel better. But it's short-lived. So after a while, you're back to zero, and then the receptor. So in order to get rid of the discomfort of not having the drugs bind to the receptor, that's how people end up being addicted to it.
I've read, in researching for this, that sometimes the drug addicts talk about two things. Taking one drug to go up and taking another one to come down, like an upper and a downer. Exactly. Is that a kind of explanation for what happens with these addictions?
Well, yes. The downers are like the opioids, okay? Alcohol, okay? The uppers are like the cocaine, the amphetamines, okay? They are stimulants.
Right.
And these ones are downers. They make you feel calm, euphoric, but you're just floating.
Okay, so for any parent watching us now, how would you know if your child is on any of these opioids? And I have a list of names here: Rohypnol, promethazine, codeine, morphine, diazepam. I even have Viagra, Percocet, fentanyl, Oxycontin, Vicodin. And I remember Michael Jackson as well. All these drugs were mentioned. How would you know if your child is on these things?
The first thing, you notice that the person becomes increasingly sleepy. The child begins to sleep more, okay? Drowsy, not as alert as he or she used to be. For some of them, you will notice a blue tinge to the lips or fingernails. Maybe a blue tinge to it, okay? Then you also observe some of them begin to, especially when they are withdrawing from the drug, you see them having running nose. They have catarrh frequently.
Are you serious?
Yes, or they are often going to the toilet. They have diarrhea, because diarrhea and catarrh is one of the withdrawal effects
of the thing
of the opioids. Okay, and you see the child always yawning, keeps yawning. Those are things you want to watch out for as well. Okay. Then for some of them also, you may see when they are actually intoxicated from the drug, they are constipated. Okay?
So they won't go to toilet, and
Yes.
then they have the runs as well.
Yes, so the withdrawal symptom is the runs.
Right.
But with the effect of intoxication is the constipation. Then you also will realize that the child is spending a lot more time isolated. They become socially withdrawn. They don't want to interact as much
With people.
with people. Okay? Then, of course, for a child who has access to money, they can't account for it, but they're always asking for money because they need to fund the drug use.
Yes.
Then some of them become, sometimes they may be forgetful, they lose concentration and all of that, and then mood swings. Okay, but by far, one of the things to watch out for are those drowsiness, the blue tinge to the lips and fingers.
When you say blue, like,
Yes, it becomes bluish. Because what happens is opioids cause respiratory depression. Okay, and you notice some of them breathing slower. Their breathing becomes very slow. It suppresses respiration.
so they can actually sleep and forget to breathe.
Yes. To actually cease respiration and the person dies.
Unfortunately, they don't know these things
Most of
when
them
they
don't.
start.
Most of them don't know. And that's why opioids, the heroines, the codeines and cold morphines, they are a lot more dangerous, okay, than the cocaines, so to say. Even though those ones are very powerfully addictive.
Yes.
And the reason why is because when you're taking a drug, okay, similar, to alcohol, you see somebody who's getting addicted to alcohol, it takes a bottle, and after a while it goes to 2 bottles, before even 5. What's happening is the body is getting used to the effect of 1 bottle. So 1 bottle doesn't do enough.
Do anything for
it
him
goes-
anymore.
Keeps going. Good. And that we call that tolerance. So the body develops tolerance to the drug. For opioids, the same thing. You begin to take maybe 2 kilograms, you increase to 4 kilograms, or let's say codeine, 1 bottle, and the next the person taking 4 bottles, next thing 10 bottles to feel the same effect. Now the problem with codeine, unlike most other drugs, when you stop, maybe you've gotten to where you're taking 10 bottles,
Yes.
and you stop, the tolerance will still remain at about that level for 10 bottles. So if you go back to taking 10 bottles,
Yes.
your body was already tolerant to it. So it's not
So
really
you
a
have to
problem.
increase from 10.
You may have to, or you may just continue from 10. Okay? But with opioids, when you stop, maybe you got into 10 and you stop for about a week or 2 or a month,
Yes.
your tolerance drops. Your body is no longer used to handling 10, no longer can handle 10. So when you now go back, maybe you try to stop and you
Yeah.
don't stop, and then you give up one day, look, I'm going to go back to this. And you go back to the dose you were using, 10 bottles. Because your body is no longer tolerant to 10 bottles, what happens is it could just shut down your breathing. And that's why you see many Hollywood stars die in their bathroom. Because half treatments for opioid abuse is even more dangerous than no treatment. Because you forget, most of them don't understand that tolerance to opioids is achieved rapidly, but it also drops rapidly, unlike other drugs. So you're thinking, oh, I last used 10 bottles, let me take 8. Well, your body can no longer, the tolerance has dropped.
You
level
have
of
to
1.
start from scratch again.
Exactly, and most of them don't know that. So when they go back to what they used to use, what happens is it suddenly suppresses your breathing, and you find the person on the floor, dead. So that's why it kills a lot more Hollywood stars than the other drugs.
You know, there was a documentary recently shown on this opioid crisis that, from my understanding, gave the impression that it was only people of a certain class that took the drugs. But my research shows that people from the elite class
Yes.
are seriously affected as well. And one of the reasons being that a lot of people think that because it's a medication, it's a cough syrup. I mean, what harm can cough syrup do? You know, it's a cough syrup, it's tramadol, it's a tablet, it's a legitimate medication used in a hospital. But even though they are legitimate, they are harmful. And this is why on the box of all these drugs, you have these instructions. If you've been taking this for 3 days and there's no improvement, consult your doctor.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they are. Even if you go into research, not much data on codeine abuse. The reason why is because it wasn't our focus for opioid abuse. It was the pentazocines, okay, the tramadols, okay.
What is tramadol? Is it the same family as Panadol?
No, it's not. It's an opioid. So it's the same category as morphine.
It's for extreme pain.
It's for pain.
Is it used in orthopedics for bones or?
Yes, you could use for orthopedics. Some people have painful menses, some people, all sorts. So it's a painkiller, okay, but it's of the opioid derivative.
But Panadol and
Panadol is
paracetamol are
No,
not.
those are acetaminophen, they are not.
Just as an aside, would taking Panadol or paracetamol have any effect?
By and large, it's not one of those drugs that have significant psychic effects.
And it's
No.
not addictive?
No, it's not. However, it could affect the liver. That's the danger with such drugs. If you take excessive, if you overdose on them, it could affect your liver, because the liver is the primary organ that deals with breaking them down.
Okay.
And if you overload the liver, it won't be able to handle that, so it can affect the liver. But other than that, it's not in the class of these drugs.
So what drugs do you come across at Luth or within your NGO, Suicide Research? What are the drugs of choice from these young people?
Well, what we usually find is the codeine cough syrup now. Before then, it was more tramadol and pentazocine.
Pentazocine, what's that for? Pain as well?
It's an injectable form of opioids.
They inject it?
Yes. That's why we're quite worried about the opioids. Because the thing with the codeine,
yes,
a number of people we've had, they were hospital prescribed. They didn't just wake up and start going to buy these drugs.
Yes.
So they were prescribed for pain, genuinely.
Yes.
Okay? Now, the issue is it pain that could have been dealt with Parental?
Yes.
That's another question, okay, which we're trying to work with our colleagues on. Because a number of times, it could be convenient to give an opioid. It's stronger than the Parental,
yes,
okay? And because of the complaint the patient may have. And then the patient comes back and says, look, that pain, exactly. And okay, you prescribe it again. Over time, the person begins to get used to it. Now, the thing with opioids for pain is once you're going above the threshold, okay, you're getting, abusing it, you're beginning to abuse it,
yes,
the pain threshold drops. So that for which maybe you had bone pain,
yes,
and they started prescribing an opioid for you, and you begin to now use it excessively,
yes,
your pain threshold will drop. That pain becomes more.
You feel it more.
You feel it more. So what it means, you go for more. And then you tell the doctor this is no longer working. If he's not suspicious of it, he says, okay, you know what, since tramadol is not working, or dihydrocodone is not working, let's give you pentazocine injection. It's longer acting. And so they give the person pentazocine. And the person gets, oh, this is even better. The euphoric feeling is better, the pain relief is better. But again, after a while, the pain threshold drops. So we found that patients now get used to buying pentazocine and injecting themselves. And that's the power of addiction. The challenge we now have with codeine is that it's been found that people who abuse codeine, after a while, the codeine is not enough. How many bottles can you take?
Yes.
Because it's liquid. You get full. So they now realize that the level of euphoria they're getting is no longer achievable, even with 20 bottles a day. And so what did they do? A lot of them learn about heroin. And that's where the danger is. Because they now go, what 10 bottles of codeine will give me,
heroin will give me in one dosage.
Just the powder. And once they identify that, we are in trouble.
We're seeing a natural progression from drinking codeine cough syrup to using heroin.
That's where there's a big problem.
Join us again after the break. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, it's 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajetumobi. On my hot seat today, Dr. Raphael Ogbolu is a consultant psychiatrist from the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. I was reading Dr. Olubumi Omojowolo a neurologist at Luth with you there. She says Nigeria should prepare for a new generation of mad people. That is scary.
It is. Of course, the link between substance abuse and other mental health problems is very strong. Okay? Somebody who abuses substances is at risk of having depression, okay, at risk of triggering other forms of mental health issues like anxiety disorders and even schizophrenia for somebody who may have some predisposition.
Yes.
So it's like you're setting fire to
Igniting something.
Yes.
Why don't we have a system like they have in the UK and in the UAE where certain classes of drugs cannot be obtained under any circumstances without a prescription from a doctor?
Yes, the laws are there. We have the laws. Our problem is the enforcement. The laws are clearly there. There are certain drugs. Drugs are classified. They are the ones you can buy over the counter.
Yes.
And they're the ones, and the laws are there in Nigeria. Okay? And we have the agencies, the NAFDACs, the NDLEs, but it's the enforcement aspect. So these laws are there, but the monitoring to make sure that these things are not done. I mean, right now, you have people who push wheelbarrows and they have opioids in them.
They say they're hooked on tramadol.
So, and I mean, you see them all over the streets. The person pushing doesn't know what he's pushing, but he's just selling drugs. And these are drugs that should not be given without prescription. So is that enforcement that is a problem? The laws are there. And then when people are caught, are they punished? We need to begin to look at that. While we are trying to address the demand by educating people, we have to also address the supply. For instance, in the hospitals, there's a cupboard, small one, it's marked, okay? Those are dangerous drugs of addiction. So nobody, only the matron on the ward has the key to that.
To get in there.
They are highly restricted in the hospital. So it has to be with the prescription, and you must explain why the person needs to take it before she will go and open. It's not something you buy from the pharmacy. One of the drugs included in that box is morphine, traditionally. Okay, because morphine, you should not give it until it's expediently necessary.
Yes.
So it's a heavily controlled drug in the hospital. But it now means that we have to also include things like lesser forms of opioids, because they were not included in that box.
Yes.
Because of the ease with which people can get these things over the counter, I think we need to put more restrictions on them.
On those drugs.
In the hospital and in the pharmacies. But we know that you can go to a pharmacy that is reputable and you tell them you want tramadol or any of these opioids, and they will ask for a prescription.
Yes.
But it's not the same with chemists. And we have far more chemists than we have pharmacists.
Yes.
The pharmacist knows because he's a professional. Okay, so he knows these are dangerous drugs, I will ask for a prescription. But the chemist doesn't know. All he's doing is stocks drugs and he wants to make his money.
Money, yes.
And a number of them don't even know. Okay,
the gravity of what they're selling.
I give you an example. We're trying to help someone overcome addiction, okay, to opioids. And then the chemist that usually sells the opioid calls the person that, I haven't seen you in a while. So in his mind, it's money. In my
what
market.
happened?
Exactly.
Yes.
Why haven't you come to buy? And this is something somebody is trying to get over. So in his mind, he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know the danger in what he's selling. All he wants to do is sell. So those are the problems we have.
Yes.
The BBC documentary highlighted a drug rep from a pharmaceutical company. He's not the only one. There are several of them. And we've had young students in university that we've interviewed.
Yes.
And they've told us that some of these people will drive to their school with a van loaded with cough syrup. And they look for those students who are sociable, asking them to be their agents in school. They give you 200,000 naira a month, and maybe even buy you a car. And this is a student who is 100 level, 200 level. When we ask them to they reveal their identity, they don't want to. But they're telling you that this is beyond what the society knows. And that person comes, opens his van, loaded with codeine, sells all the codeine to students, and then goes back and gets rave reviews in the company because he's pushing drugs.
He's making his target.
Exactly. How is he gets promotions, he gets everything. People don't know how he's able to, they say he's marketing the drug very well, whereas he's actually ruining the lives of young children.
Yes.
There are many of them. And so it's time that drug companies begin to find out how do people dispose the drugs they market. Because before, I mean, nobody would bother, oh, he's sold that. He's a very good drug sales rep.
Yes.
But you don't know what he's doing. So now we have to begin to pay attention to this. So the incentives are high. There's no doubt.
To sell these things.
To sell these drugs. And when the time you're offering a student 200,000 a month and maybe a car, most of them, except those of them who are very high morals, will accept it. It's free money to them.
Yes.
So,
how do they take these drugs? Do they just take the bottle of cough syrup, open it and swig it down? Or?
Yes, some of them do that. But a number of them, what they do is, their favorite pattern is to get a bottle of Coke, or a bottle of La Casera, or Viju milk. Those are the three.
Viju milk?
Yes, it's like
a
yogurt kind of thing.
Yes.
And they pour the codeine
into
into it. And they shake it up.
All right.
And they go about campus sipping it. So you don't
sipping it all day.
All day. So the person is going about with a bottle of plastic bottle of Coke. You think it's Coke, but it's actually codeine. You have 2 or 3 bottles of codeine poured in it. You won't expect. I mean,
so if you ask him, oh, can I take a sip? He probably won't.
Yes, they won't. Probably offer to buy you yours. So that's they found out that those are the 3 they usually like: Coke, La Casera, and then this
Viju milk. Yeah. You talked about it suppressing respiratory function. What other organs are affected by these opioids?
Over time, especially for those of them who begin to inject them, it can also lead to end organ failure, the kidneys and other pancreatitis, the pancreas, and all of that.
Fail completely.
Yes. Those are things that people need to be aware of. Over time, the effect it has on the respiratory system. Oxygen is the life of the body.
Yes.
So if there's reduced respiratory, of course, supplying all the different organs, those organs, especially if they already had some compromise, will just break down. So it's a danger not just because of the psychic effects, but the physiological or physical effects.
Are they violent?
Most of them, no. Most of them, no.
Well, because they're like dull.
Exactly, drowsy. You know, most of them describe they're just floating, as if they're floating about the place.
Doesn't it affect their academics in school? And
most of these drugs of abuse, cannabis, opioids, they affect memory. Opioid affects short-term memory, which could be a problem in learning. And so naturally academic performance has been linked. Many studies have linked drug abuse with declining academic performance. So you begin to see the child who was doing pretty well, suddenly the grades are dropping and you're asking why. And you may investigate and find that the child, especially when you now see these other signs I mentioned, the parent needs to begin to ask questions. But the thing is, these children are exposed to a lot of things, to social media and a lot of things. And of course, those who are trying to get them to abuse drugs are also advancing in their approach.
Yes.
These days, some people use social media to market these drugs. You know, there was one in the UK. All the person did was his hand and then the drugs, the pills there. But luckily, they now advanced technology that they use the fingerprints in the picture to track the person. We don't have that. But those are things that people are thinking about because they are now trying to be more invasive. So we have to be more proactive about it. So even here, those things are happening.
I mean, what is the youngest age you've seen of people coming forward with this kind of crisis? Because I'm reading things and being told people of age 15, age 14, girls, boys already taking these opioids. I'm told of parties in universities where they use this dispenser water canister and they mix this thing in it and everybody goes there and you think you're having like a punch, but really.
All sorts. I mean, 14, 15 is old.
is old.
Yes, we're seeing primary school children who are now abusing substances, particularly cannabis, and of course, alcohol, cigarettes. So from some local studies have found children as early as 9, 10 who have
already taking these things.
Already. The drug abuse habit is modeled to them by older children. So they are just learning what they see.
Yes.
So that's the problem.
And if you think your older brother or sister is cool doing that, you know.
So it's much lower than we see in primary school now. We see primary school. Right? One of my colleagues did a survey in one of the primary schools in Lagos and found that it was alarming, more than 50%.
Of the children?
Yes. Because what happened was it's a school where you have both primary and secondary and tertiary in the same community.
Compound.
So the secondary students have learned, okay, they're looking up to the university students, higher institution students who are already using the substances.
Yes.
And so what they do is they now use the primary school students to send them on errands.
To go and buy the thing.
To go and buy it. And gradually those ones start to use it. So we found that more than 50% of them were already.
Are they mixing things? You know, when I say mixing, I take a bit of tramadol, you know, sip my codeine syrup, and then, you know, maybe add some diazepam to it. Do you find cases where some people are on more than 2 or 3 of these things at the same time?
Yes. Oh, certainly we do. A number of them who abuse opioids mix with alcohol.
And that's supposed to be a no-no.
It is, because there are 2 downers. So even the respiratory depression risk is worse, it's higher. But they don't know.
When you say respiratory depression risk, you know when you go to hospital and they say the oxygen in the blood is low and they put one thing on your finger, is that what they're testing for?
No, what they are testing for is the oxygen saturation in your blood.
Okay.
Okay, the extent of oxygenation of your blood.
Yes.
But this one is the breathing. Okay, there's a center in the body.
Yes.
That controls, in the brain, that controls your breathing. Okay. And okay. Now what happens is the codeine, the opioids, act on that respiratory center to suppress it. So what happens? You breathe much slower. You're taking in less oxygen.
Are you serious?
Exactly. And then if it's an overdose, what it will do, it will shut that respiratory center and you stop breathing altogether. It completely suppresses the respiration.
Sudden death.
Yes. So the person will just collapse, stop breathing and die. So that's the risk with opioid overdose. Most of the stories you hear about somebody, one Hollywood star died in his bathroom, is opioid. Most of it is almost always opioid. The person overdosed on opioid and then went into respiratory suppression and died.
You know, I was reading some lady from University of Miami, Professor Felicia Knorr. She's an international health economist. And she heads a commission which monitors global access to pain relief and palliative care. This commission found that 90% of all the morphine in the world is consumed by the world's richest 10%. I was shocked to read that. And then she says opioid pain relief varies from country to country, and not all countries get the amount of pain relief that they need. For instance, the United States gets 30% more pain medication than it actually needs. Mexico gets 36% of what it needs. China gets 16%. India gets 4%. But Nigeria gets 0.2% of the pain medication that it needs. So I'm thinking 0.2%, and yet we have an opioid crisis, which means that we probably don't even have enough medication to help people who are in pain. How are we going to manage these 2 things? Because these opioids are still needed for pain relief.
Yes, and you may find that people are divided across lines in that. Now, what these countries like the US, the belief is that somebody should not have to suffer
any pain at
all. There should be no pain. And because of the propensity or how common medical legal issues are, The patient could sue you that you did not provide enough pain relief for me when I was in the
Just
hospital.
kept me in pain.
That's it. So rather than be sued, I will give you more than you need. Just take it. You understand?
Yes.
And that is a problem.
Okay, so in Nigeria, when they say to you, can't you hold some things in? It's important for you to be able to, adjust to some level of pain, is what you're telling me now.
Yes, because as psychiatrists or psychologists, we know that some will say 30 to 40%, some will say more than 50%. 50% of the pain you experience is psychological. It's your mind. And that's why some people have used things like meditation and other non-pharmacological approaches to manage pain. And people have felt relief. And that tells you that the extent to which you feel you are in pain,
yes, it's in your mind,
will dictate how much pain you feel. And that's what we're trying to say. Don't go overboard.
Yes.
If somebody comes to the hospital complaining of pain, don't jump to the highest. Start from
the lowest.
Paracetamol. And most of the time, with counseling and talking to the person, you find that some of them will find it effective.
Yes.
But when you immediately, okay, look, this person is complaining too much about pain, let me just get him off my back. I prescribe him morphine or pentazocine. I've jumped the ladder. And that's what we're trying to discourage. Some do not understand it that way. They see that, look, effective pain management is giving appropriate dose for the pain that the person feels. But we're trying to say, what you think is appropriate dose may be in terms of the pharmacological treatment. But have you considered the psychological treatment of pain, which is well known? People who go into labor, they're feeling the labor pains.
Yes.
But they could be taught to go through it without medication. And they will go through it.
Yes.
But if you're going to quickly jump and, get me
epidural and...
So that's what we, the psychiatrists and psychologists, are trying to let people, and our colleagues as well, understand that please let's not jump to giving morphine. Let's not give the regular ones, paracetamol, okay, and things like that. And counsel the person. I've always believed, it's something that is more common, obviously, amongst mental health experts. Explaining the process to the person. If you tell somebody, comes to the hospital for whatever complaint, it could be physical, psychological, but sitting down to tell the person why the person is experiencing that symptom, it goes a long way in helping the person through the suffering. Just knowing that, why I'm running fever, or why I'm coughing,
it's because of this, and this.
Knowing the process is a way of relieving the suffering. So it shouldn't be just, I can't talk, just tell me what your complaints are, and next thing I'm writing prescription. No, that's not the way to practice. It's important that you explain to the person, because in the past it was just the doctor feeding the patient.
Yes.
Okay? But in the modern era, it's become a collaborative approach. We need to work together to get you well. You can't shield the patient from the information.
No.
It won't help.
No.
You
need to bring them into the conversation.
And the truth about it, whenever I do that, it makes my job easier, because the patient knows, and you find that they do better than you not telling them anything. And those are the things we're trying to encourage our colleagues to do. And again, parents need to be alert. A number of children we've had to treat for drug abuse, you see the parents
looking shocked.
They never knew this was happening. How could you? You couldn't, because you never knew what to look out for.
Yes.
So the parents themselves need to be educated.
We'll take it from the point of education when we come back from our final break. So join us again after the break. Welcome back. My concluding moments now with Dr. Raphael Ogbolu, a consultant psychiatrist from the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. You talked about how parents need to be educated about these things. How? I mean, is it by talking to the kids? You know, is it by having, a friend of mine says you must have a daily interaction with your child. I know people go a whole week without actually having a conversation with one's child, but is it just by talking to the child? You know, how do you detect these things? Do you snoop around in their bedrooms, for instance?
Well, the first thing to do is talk to the child. Not because you think the child is abusing substance. Let the child, sit down with the child and ask them what they know about drug abuse. Start from there. And then find, based on their response, it depends on your prior interaction with the child.
Yes.
The child who, is so scared of the parent, he's probably not going to say anything.
And that is a no-no. To get to the root of this, to find a solution, this is not about being strict or wicked or beating the child.
It worsens it. So it depends. So if it's a parent who already can't talk with the child, then ask them, has anyone tried to introduce them to drugs? What do they know about drugs? What are the different drugs they know about?
Yes.
And then take it up from there. Based on what they know, what they tell you, you now go through telling them about the common drugs. You must tell them about cannabis and the risk of cannabis, okay? You must tell them about alcohol and the risk of alcohol at their age. You must tell them about these codeines now and these other opioids. These are the things we commonly see them use. Ecstasy, cigarettes.
Yes.
Okay? So tell them, at least cover those ones, and then let them know that any other one you may not have covered. But to do that, you have to know about the drugs. So the parents cannot give what he doesn't have.
Yeah.
So the parent education itself is important. So once the parent has gotten educated about drug abuse, then you can approach to talk to the child. Now, if it's a parent who has this kind of relationship where it doesn't even, we realize that a number of parents don't know how to talk to their children.
Yes.
More than, almost very, very high percentage. So what we suggest is that there should be a collaborative relationship with the parent, teacher, and child. A lot of them will have a teacher that can talk to them.
Yes.
So work with that teacher. Sometimes it may be one parent that can't talk to the child. The other one who can should be the one.
Should be the one, yes.
If that still doesn't work, there's something, we call it the real box game, okay? Especially for families where you don't have time because you're so busy to talk to the kids. You get a box. Could be
like a suggestion box.
Yes.
Yes.
You cut it open, and at the end of maybe a week or two, everyone should have dropped in a question into that box. Okay, at least 2 questions.
Yes.
And then on a day that the family is usually together, you bring out the box and you bring the questions out one by one. Everybody sat down and they go through it. Whoever can
treating
answer
the questions.
Exactly. It's a way to communicate, especially for those families where communication is not very strong, okay? Or those parents who don't even know how to begin to talk to their children.
Yes.
We suggest things like that. So you can either use the teacher, you can use this real box game, or if you're the one that can talk to the child, but you must first get educated. So because of that, what we're doing is we started going to some schools to try and educate parents on drug abuse, so that at least they know what to tell the child, because the children oftentimes we find have more knowledge
than the parent, even if it's warped knowledge.
Yes, exactly.
They will think they know.
They know.
Yes.
Because they are getting information from different sources.
Yes.
So you need to correct some of those things, but you need to know before you can correct them.
Correct
There are so many myths. You tell them.
Yes.
Oh, that this will enhance your memory. This will enhance
to make you stronger.
Exactly. And those are the studies that have been conducted.
Yes.
Those are the things they say. Some of them say, oh, we're told it will help them concentrate better, or it will help them sleep better. All sorts. Those are the usual reasons. So you need to correct those erroneous beliefs, but you need to know. Yes. So parents' education is very key, and then child education. And then school mental health should now come to the fore.
Yes.
Because it's been relegated. Most schools don't even have any mental health policy. But we'll now find that a number of people, even adults that we see who are addicted to substances or who had mental health problems,
yes,
the problem started when they were in school.
and nobody detected.
Nobody paid attention, yes.
Is that why you've called for the inclusion of those suffering from drug abuse in our NHIS, that's our health insurance service? Is it costly to treat drug abuse? Why are you saying we should include it in the NHIS?
Yeah, because it's not included in the NHIS. In fact, the number of mental health conditions included are very, very minimal. Again, because probably they didn't appreciate the extent of the problem when they were drawing up the conditions that could be treated under NHIS.
Yes.
But now, if we didn't know before, now we know that we have a drug abuse epidemic. And most of the time, not all of them can afford the treatment. The treatment in the early stage may not be as expensive when the person has become dependent
on it.
Because abuse is different. Abuse means that, yes, you're taking the drug beyond the acceptable limits. It goes some way to affect your obligations, whether to family or to school or to whatever.
Yes.
Okay? You're not able to really control the drug use. So that's abuse.
But when you're dependent,
that means your whole life
is focused on that thing.
It now becomes the center of your life. Every other thing becomes less important. And that's why dependence, we try to address people when they are still at the abuse stage before they get to dependence.
So by dependence, they probably have to be confined.
Usually they have to go through extensive rehabilitation and confine, because that's when they will do anything to get the drug, okay?
Steal.
Yes, anything. Because at that point, it is the most important thing in their life. Family doesn't matter, children don't matter, work doesn't matter, nothing matters.
You know, just listening to you, in some time past, drug abuse was cocaine and heroin and LSD and stuff like that. But we're seeing now that, you know, normal medication is also tantamount to being abused.
Yeah.
How are we going to handle this? It's very scary. In my estate where I live, you know, we have empty bottles of these cough syrups. You see them when you go jogging in the morning, and you're wondering, you know, how are these parents coping? If parents are watching us now who think that they have their children are hooked on these things, they've seen the blue lips, they've seen the runny nose, they've seen the blue nails, they've seen the sleepiness all day, you know, no oomph to get up and do anything else. Who can they reach? How can they be helped?
I would advise them to seek the services of any mental health expert who is trained in drug abuse, okay? They can't have one, but who is specifically trained in drug abuse. Most mental health experts will have idea how to handle drug addiction issues. So the first thing is not to try and minimize it, because we have that with parents.
Okay, it's not by going to church.
It's not. A lot of them are in denial. And then some of them
minimize it. It's not my portion.
Exactly. Oh, it's not that bad. No, it's that bad. Okay? So the first thing is, once you feel that the child is abusing substance, let the child talk to a mental health expert. Okay? We will do screening. We'll screen the child and then evaluate the child and know to what extent, okay, the child is using.
What does screening entail? Blood tests?
Yes, urine or blood tests to detect the drug.
The drug of preference?
Yes. No, the substance that the person is abusing in the person's system. Okay, so it will tell us, because some of them who are abusing several may tell you I'm only taking
tramadol.
But by the time you screen, you see cannabis is there, other things are there. So we need to screen. So screening and then trying to get the child to understand why this is a problem.
Yes.
So, and then the person is initiated into the treatment.
Yes.
So that's what I would advise. First, don't sit on it. Seek a mental health expert. And there, you have at least 3 government institutions in the state that have mental health services.
Yes.
The LASUS, the LUTS, the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, and a few private as well. So reach out. They should not sit on it. Once you suspect, because you may not be able to confirm. If you're waiting to confirm, usually
you wait
problem
forever.
Is already, beyond you. So once you suspect, talk to the child first. Okay? If after talking to the child, the child doesn't admit, but you still continue to see the signs, bring the child for evaluation. That's what I would advise.
In the hospital.
Again, they could call, because like you initially said,
yes,
we've seen a lot of cases of suicide-related incidents in the young, adolescents and all of that. We've had under 12s, under 15s who have committed suicide or attempted suicide. And if a number of them have been linked to drug abuse, some of them either will take the drug to get bold to commit the suicide. Yes. Some of them, it is under intoxication that
they do it.
Exactly. So they are both very strong. And the third group are those who are addicted,
yes,
are trying to overcome the addiction. They've repeatedly failed in overcoming the addiction, and they now see themselves as failures.
So what's the point?
Exactly. So those are the three categories of people we see in our suicide prevention initiative who are linked to drug abuse. So for that reason, again, we need to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so that's why we have hotlines which people call. We've had people call over things, I'm feeling suicidal.
Yes.
Okay?
And these calls come from all over the country?
We've had calls from several states out of Lagos, as far as Kano, Kogi, Owerri, all places. So and that tells us that people always needed an avenue
to vent on these things. All right, for the sake of the viewer at home, I'll just read out some of these phone numbers. The first number is 090-8021-7555. That's 090-8021-7555. The second number, 081-1190-9909. That's 081-1190-9909. The third number, 090-3440-0009. That's 090-3440-0009. And the last number, 070-1381-1143. That's 070-1381-1143. So essentially, if people call any of these numbers, there's a counselor there to take them through and to guide them. What would be the normal process upon speaking with somebody on the phone?
Okay, when the call is received, of course, the person will ask what the issues are. And once the receiver is able to establish the issues, some call for information. Okay, I'm experiencing this. I've heard about depression. Is it depression I'm going through? And so we'll just educate the person.
Right.
Some call, I'm facing these challenges and I'm finding it difficult to bear. So in those cases, we try and find out right now, at that point in time, how the person is feeling.
Yes.
If it's something that needs immediately to be addressed, needs to be addressed immediately. If not, we give the person an appointment
to come
for free counseling. After the free counseling, we now find out, this person may need more advanced psychological treatment. We will now refer or link to a mental health expert. If it's somebody who is suicidal, of course, we receive that call, we try and de-escalate the situation. What are the circumstances the person is facing at that time that makes the person feel death is the best option? And we try as much as possible to try and get the person to be dissuaded from that action. If we can, immediately we try and mobilize forces. Who are the people around you? Give us other contacts. We need people to be around that person. Because even the person may have agreed, okay, I'm not going to do it now. The person remains a risk.
Yes.
Okay, and some of them, if they are not too far away, we ask them to come. Okay. For those that we still feel who do not agree that, look, it's not the best option, I'm still thinking I should do it. We usually will find out the person's location, where you are. Usually they tell us, okay? And then we'll try and mobilize a rapid response squad. We have a relationship and they try and get
go there
exactly.
and bring the person
That's
in.
it. So those are the things we do.
Okay. And for any of the young people or whatever age who are using these opioids now, what advice can you give?
Yeah, I'd like them to know that the biggest danger to drug abuse is feeling that you have control over it. Do not fall into that trap. You have
The biggest
no
danger with drug abuse is thinking you have control over it.
Some will say, I will stop it when I want to. No. Don't
I'm not
fall into
addicted.
that. Exactly. That's the biggest danger. And that's what makes people keep going back to it. So please appreciate that once you've started, you're no longer in control. The drug is controlling your reward center in your brain. It gives you this false sense that you're the one in control. No.
But you're not.
You say, oh, I decide how much of it I take. Oh, I decide, okay, some days I take 2 bottles, some days I take 1. That means I'm in control. But no, you're not in control because you're taking it. The fact that you're taking it should tell you that
you're not in control.
It's deceptive when you think the amount you take regulated by you is a sign of control. No, that's a sign of lack of control. So that's the biggest danger. And then the advice would be, the best thing to avoid drug abuse is not to start at all.
Don't be deceived by anything they're telling you.
Yes, not to start at all. There can be nothing good that comes out of it. Okay, so avoid experimenting. Most people will do, a number of people, but if you can avoid experimenting, do not experiment.
When you say experimenting, your friend telling you that this thing is okay, just try it.
Yes.
You're not a man.
Exactly. So yes, there'll be peer pressure usually and all of that. And we'll find that it has to do with the child's temperament and personality. Some children seek approval from others.
Validation.
Their own self-esteem. So nobody can give you validation more than yourself. Nobody can make you feel good about you except you. So those are the things they need to know.
Yes.
Okay? And as much as you want to belong, okay, to a group, a peer group, and identify with people, you should set your own rules. Don't let others set the rules for you. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ogbolu, for coming on the program. It's been an enlightening conversation, and I hope that, people listening to us today will take advantage, especially with the numbers showing on your screen now. If you suspect your children, your relatives, your nieces, your nephews at home are battling with this opioid crisis, these numbers showing on the screen are there for you. Reach out to professionals who can help. Thank you, Dr. Ogbolu.
Thank you, Father.
And thank you for watching. I'm Angela Ajitumobi.